Welcome boys and girls from YouTube. My name is Sloth, this is the Sloth Forge, and thanks a lot for stopping by on today's video. In today's video I want to talk about the newly added crystal system. Those crystals, those buff crystals that we can use in the challenge mode of those new dungeons, or the new challenge mode of those dungeons. Because those crystals, they can be very strong. They have a very huge impact on your progress for those dungeons. So I want to give you a short guide, probably not too short, because there is a lot that we have to talk about. First, in the first part I want to talk about those crystals real quick in general. Then in the second part I want to talk about crafting, because you can craft those crystals, which is a very cool system. And there are some things that you have to be aware of when crafting those crystals. And then I will also compare those crystals, because some of those crystals are quite similar. For example, you have a crystal that increases your damage, and then you have a crystal that reduces the enemy defense. And the question is, which of those two crystals is stronger? Because, as I said, you can improve those crystals, you can craft them. And the question is, what crystal do you want to focus on first? So the third part is going to be very interesting for most of you as well. So now let's get into this. First, let's talk about those crystals real quick. There are two kinds of crystal. We have those resurrection crystals, and then we have those buff crystals. I will refer to those resurrection crystals as trigger crystals from now on, because this is pretty much what they do. They trigger your buff crystals. And it always depends. There are different trigger crystals with different effects. And we will talk about those in just a second. You know what? Let's do this straight away. Let's talk about those different crystals real quick. First, we have those two, the isolation and the disadvantage crystal. I don't like those two crystals at all. I think they are not so good because they are quite niche. They limit your team building by a lot. But in theory, they are also quite cool because they can trigger up to 6 crystals right at the start of the battle, which is very cool. Those are the only 2 crystals that can do this, but they limit you so much by you have to deploy less than 5 heroes, or not even use the 3 hero elemental affinity. So I don't like those 2 crystals at all, but maybe there are some very cool teams with these crystals. Who knows? Next one is the fortune one. This is like whenever you cast your ultimate, you have a chance to activate this crystal, or the buff crystal. The ultimate 3 crystal is pretty much the same, but it is more reliable. Those 2 crystals are fine, not the best ones in my opinion, but they are fine. You have to be aware of, by the way, we can use every single crystal, buff crystal, and trigger crystal only once. So we have to use some of those. We cannot only use the best one 4 times. So yeah, we have to use a combination of different crystals. The fading light one is a very cool one if you have a summon team, but it is only good in a summon team. Even if you have someone like Mithrasia in your team and you can actually revive your allies, even then I don't like the fading light at all, except of course if you have a summon team. If you spam a lot of skeletons or ghosts, whatever, then the fading light is actually a quite cool crystal. But you have to be aware of that only for summoned units this triggers only with 30% of the original chunks, so it's not the best one out there as well. Then the cumulative damage, I don't like this at all. I think this is a very bad one, because you have to deal a fixed amount of damage before you can trigger your buff crystals, so I don't like this at all. I think this is a very bad one actually. Then we have the abundance. I don't know how to pronounce this. Whenever you grant a fixed amount of buffs, then you will activate a buff effect. And the same here we have with thinning, with debuffs. Whenever you trigger or whenever you inflict the given amount of debuffs, then this activates. Those are very good as well, depending a little bit on your team. If you don't bring any buffs, then this one is not good, of course. But if you have someone like Asilia or maybe Tauren, just heroes that inflict or that grant a lot of buffs, then the abundance one is very cool. Same with thinning. If you inflict a lot of debuffs, if you use Felicity or some poison heroes, then the thinning crystal is very cool as well. And my personal favorite is the rotation crystal, because it is just very reliable at the start of the battle, and then every 15 to 20 seconds you will just trigger the buff effects. So this is my personal favorite. So I would probably go with rotation, fortune, ultimate, and then depending, abundance or thinning. Most likely. But who knows, it always depends a little bit on your team. And now next, those buff crystals. Let's speed this up a little bit. The luck one is very cool. It will just increase your drop, so this is a very cool one later on. So later on, once you have no big problems to clear stage 6 of the hard mode, then you definitely want to use the luck buff crystal. Then we have the defense penalty, which just increase your damage, same as the damage bonus. I will compare those two in the third part of the video to give you an idea of which of those two crystals is better. Then we have attack down and damage reduction. Once again, they help us just to survive a little bit longer. I will also compare those two in the end of the video. Then we have energy drain, which can be very strong in some particular teams, especially rally teams or maybe, for example, dauntless teams. Then the energy drain can be very cool, but other teams where you already have a rotation, fixed skill timings, then the energy drain is absolutely useless. And then we have restoration and shield, who heals or places or grants shields. Also helps us to survive, so if you struggle to survive, you can go with one of those two crystals here as well. And yeah, those are the crystals. Now, let's talk about crafting. How can you craft your crystals? How can you improve your crystals? And there are some things that you have to be aware of. First, how can you access the crafting system? You go to ally buffs in whatever challenge mode dungeon you want to. It is the same in every dungeon. Then you click on craft here on the bottom left, and then you are at the crafting system. So, what now? There are some things that you have to be aware of. First, you can only combine crystals of the same rarity. So you can only combine blue crystals with other blue crystals, purple crystals with other purple crystals, and so on. However, you can also combine crystals of different categories. So they have to be the same rarity, but you can use crystals of different categories. So for example, I can combine a defense penalty and a damage reduction crystal, but then the outcome is going to be random. So we don't want to do this at all. We always want to combine crystals of the same category so that we know the actual outcome. Then, if we combine or if we have a deeper look at those crystals, as I said, they have a range. For example, this one here, it reduces the defense of the enemy by 4.5%, while this one reduces the defense by 5%. So this one is slightly better, even though they are of the same rarity. It is because they are from a different level. This one here is only level 1, as you can see here in the top left corner, while this one here is level 2. Now, if we combine those two crystals, then the outcome you can see here is going to have at least 5% as well. So it is going to be at least level 2. However, in most cases, like I would say 4 out of 5 cases, it is going to be at least 1 level higher than your highest gem. So this is most likely now going to be at least level 3. Yeah, it is actually legendary. This was a very good jump. Quite unlikely actually. But yeah, if we go to those crystals just for a bit more testing, here it says that it is in theory possible that the outcome is once again level 1. Even now it is most likely, yeah, at least level 2, it is level 3 actually. Now this is very interesting because if I now combine those two crystals, like level 1 crystal and a level 4 crystal, this is very, very interesting. The outcome here, it is once again at least level 4. So there is no range now. It is not at least level 2 or so. So we can only improve, or we can only stay at the same level or improve from this. So in general, I would probably recommend everyone to not combine crystals of the same level, but to always combine a high level crystal and a low level crystal. Now this here, those rates, they change a little bit. As you can see here, level 1 and level 4 is a 73% chance that it is going to be blue. While if we combine a level 3 and a level 4 crystal, we have a only 33 chance that it is going to be blue. So this here is more likely to improve to a purple one. But depending a little bit, I think it is way harder to get, especially later on when it comes to those golden crystals. It is very hard actually to get some crystals with a good level. So I think it is better to combine a high level and a low level crystal. Because as I said, the outcome is going to be at least the same level of the highest crystal. So you cannot decrease your strongest crystal. The worst possible outcome is that it is going to be the same level. But as you see, No, okay, it happened actually. We had bad luck. So, yes, we have to do some more testing here. I will try now to acquire as many of those crystals as somehow possible on my test server account so that I can actually do some in-depth testing and give you some correct data. Because we know the rarity chance, but we don't know the chances, how high are the chances, or how good are the chances that it is actually going to improve from level. Because in theory, this can also now be only level 4, even though it is a bit less likely. But I'm not 100% sure, I didn't do the math yet here, if it is actually better to combine a high level and a low level crystal or 2 high level crystals. So, but of course, maybe you already did the math. Then please share your knowledge in the comments below, or just stay tuned for future content. I will test this as well and make a very short video after I did more testing, but I need way more resources first before I can do a reliable testing. Maybe I can do the math here as well, but as I said, I'm not a math guy, so yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe I will try it with AI. We will see. But yeah, this is the crafting system. And now the final part, let's talk about those different crystals. Because as I said, some of those crystals are relatively similar. For example, the defense penalty and the damage bonus, they both help you to increase your damage output, but we don't know which one has more impact actually. So which is the first one that you want to level up? Because you will most likely focus on your damage crystals first, or maybe your luck crystals first and then your damage crystals. I'm not sure about this, but sooner or later you definitely want to improve your damage crystals, and then it is very interesting most likely for you to see which one of those two crystals has more impact. So let's get into this. What did I do? First, I made 10 rounds, or actually 11 rounds, where I didn't use any crystal so that we have a good base damage. I used Premza. I will show you the team now, just really quick. The team that I used was built around Premza, and I tried other damage dealers as well, but the reason why I ended up using Premza is because she is the most reliable or the most consistent damage dealer. She does not do any big critical hits. 95% of her damage actually comes from her passive or from her derivative damage, so we can pretty much ignore her crit damage, her crit rate, and so her damage output was the most consistent. I tried many other heroes as well, many other teams as well, but this was by far the most consistent damage output that I had, so I ended up with this team. Apart from that, I'm using Torren as healer, Berenga as a tank, Philosha as also a support to keep the team alive, and then I used Bernade in the Witch Remains, and I know, especially now if you use Bernade in Witch Remains, there is a little bit of RNG involved because sometimes he does not inflict a defense penalty on everyone, but in general, this was a very reliable run. Very reliable numbers. As you can see here, the average number was 72,000, 73,000, and there was not much range. It was like 5%. Worst case was 10% difference from the DPS, which compared to the other results that I had with other teams, this was the best one. Also, I noted down the time, because this is very interesting as well if we compare this to the runs where we used offensive crystals. And then I also noted Berenga's damage taken, because in the second part I also want to compare the defensive crystals as well. But first, let's talk about the offensive crystals. The defense penalty, once we use the defense penalty 3 crystal, and by the way, 3 plus 3 means he is rarity 3, so legendary, and also level 3. I didn't have a level 1 damage penalty, defense penalty or damage bonus crystal, so I had to use level 3 crystals. And then the stage I've used, or I've run, was stage Venom Hard, Venom Challenge, stage 3, because this was the most reliable run, because it took longer than 2 minutes, which was actually very important, that it took a little bit of time. And also, it seemed to me like, or I tried it in other dungeons as well, but here those numbers were pretty much the most consistent. So this is why I used to run Venom 3. Now, why is it important that the run take at least 2 minutes? It is because those crystals actually, and I didn't talk about this, they have a different amount of stacks. So if we compare now, the damage bonus crystal can have up to 8 stacks. Now, if we use as trigger crystal, I've used the rotation crystal because it is the most consistent one. Then it takes us a bit more than 2 minutes until we have the cap here, until we have the 8 stacks. While if we use the defense penalty, we have the cap after 3 stacks. So after 38 seconds with this exact rotation crystal here, after 38 seconds, we have the cap with those crystals. While here it takes us more than 2 minutes. So we have to be aware of this. We have to think of this if we look at those numbers now. And then those numbers are even more interesting actually. So if we use now the defense penalty 3 buff, then our damage went up by around 20% actually, which is quite nice. And the runtime went down by around 20 seconds, as you can see here. Also, the damage taken from Berenga went down as well, because now we killed those wisps, those ads from the harpy a little bit faster, so less damage was incoming to Berenga. But this is just a side note. As you can see here, the damage went up by around 20%, which is quite nice. Now, if we used, instead of the defense penalty, the damage bonus crystal, then damage was pretty much the same as it was with the defense penalty. But now you have to be aware of that we didn't fully stack up the damage bonus effects. So if this battle would have been longer, then the distance here, or the range between those two numbers, would have been even higher. So what can we know, what can we learn from those numbers? The damage bonus effect has more impact than the defense penalty effect. It is not much, but it is a little bit more impactful actually, but it depends a little bit on your team. Do you clear the stage within 30 seconds? Then you probably want the defense penalty, because then after 30 seconds you will only inflict 2 or 3 times this buff, so you are not even close to the cap. So for those short teams, for those short runs, you want the defense penalty a bit more. But in general, those stage 6 dungeons, they probably will take you at least 2 minutes or so to clear. So then you want the damage bonus more than the defense penalty. So this is the first takeaway for you. You want to focus on the damage bonus crystals first and then on the defense penalty. Now, if we look at those damage reduction bonus or damage reduction crystals, there we have very interesting numbers as well. If we use the damage reduction effect, now we used level 1 crystals by the way, then the damage taken went down to only 3,600 on average, which is quite good. If we compare this to the original without any crystals, we took an average damage of 5,500. So this is very, very good. So it seems like the damage reduction effect is very strong. Now, for some super weird reason, if we use the attack down effect, the attack down crystal, this is a quite bad number actually. We actually got even more damage than with one of those offensive crystals. Like here we got an average damage taken of 4,200, and here as well 4,300. Because we did more damage, then we killed those ads faster and we got less damage, as I said. So actually the attack down didn't decrease the damage by so much. It's only 4,800, while without any crystals it was 5,500. So roughly around a bit more than 10% less damage taken, while here if we compare this now to the original run, it went down by around 30%, which is very, very good. So your takeaway here is you definitely want to focus on the damage reduction first, or for example, if you only have space for one defensive buff crystal, then also you definitely want to use the damage reduction and not the attack down, even for the harpy, an area where extremely much damage was incoming. So it seems like the damage reduction is just a little bit better. And yeah, I think that's it. I really hope that I've mentioned everything. And let me check my notes really quick. No, I mentioned everything. If there's something that you want to add now, of course, please let me know in the comments below. Share your knowledge in the comments below. As I said, there is some more math to be done first, because before we know what is the 100% best way to craft, of course, in theory, it would be best to combine high-level crystals. But since high-level crystals are also harder to get. They are more valuable than low-level crystals. I'm not sure what is better. So stay tuned for future content. I will definitely do the math here and share the new knowledge with you as well. But that's it for today. Thank you very much for stopping by, and I really hope that today's guide was useful for you. And yeah, thanks for stopping by, and see you in the next one.